Dr. Imami, when did the belief in Mahdi become prevalent in the Islamic environment? Was there any conversation about the Mahdi during the time of the Prophet, peace be upon him, and his progeny, or was it after his death that the belief became widespread among Muslims? There are some who have written that there was no Mahdiism in the beginning of Islam. It was only in the second half of the 1st century, 7th century CE, that the idea appeared among the Muslims. There was a group that regarded Muhammad bin Hanafiya as the Mahdi and gave the good news to the people about the good fortune Islam would acquire through him. The same group believed that Muhammad bin Hanafiya had not died, but he was living in Radwa and one day would return. Mr. Hoshiar, the belief in Mahdi was widespread during the time of the Prophet. The Prophet, peace be upon him, and his progeny, on more than one occasion had announced the future coming of the Mahdi. From time to time he would inform the people about the government of the Mahdi and the signs of his emergence, giving his name and patronymic, kunya. There are numerous hadith reports that have come down to us from both the Sunni and the Shia sources on this subject. Actually, some of these reports have been related so frequently, and without interruption in all ages, that nobody can doubt their authenticity. For instance, we read the following hadith reported from Abdullah bin Mas'ud, who heard the Prophet say, "The world will not come to an end until a man from my family, al-Bayt, who will be called al-Mahdi, emerges to rule upon my community." Another tradition reported by Abu al-Hujaf quotes the Prophet saying 3 times, "Listen to the good news about the Mahdi. He will rise at the time when people will be faced with severe conflict and the earth will be hit by a violent quake. He will fill the earth with justice and equity as it is filled with injustice and tyranny. He will fill the hearts of his followers with devotion and will spread justice everywhere." And the Prophet has declared the day of resurrection will not take place until the true Qayyim rises. This will happen when God permits him to do so. Anyone who follows him will be saved, and anyone who opposes him will perish. O servants of God, keep God in your mind and go towards him even if it happens to be on the ice, for indeed he is the Caliph of God, the exalted and glorified, and my successor. In another hadith the Prophet is reported to have said, "Anyone who denies al-Qayyim among my children will have denied me." And in still another hadith the Prophet assured his community by stating, "The world will not come to an end until a man from the descendants of Hussein takes charge of the affairs of the world and fills it with justice and equity as it is filled with injustice and tyranny." Content sources. Number 1. The hadith is reported in the majority of the Sunni sources. However, here we cite Majlisi, Bihar al-Anwar, Volume 51, p. 75, who has actually compiled these reports from all the sources in one place, making it convenient to refer to them. Say also, Ithbat al-Hudat, Volume 1, p. 9. Number 2. Bihar al-Anwar, Volume 51, p. 74. Number 3. Opposes him will perish. O servants of God, keep God in your mind and go towards him even if it happens to be on the ice, for indeed he is the Caliph of God, the exalted and glorified, and my successor. Number 4. In another hadith the Prophet is reported to have said, "Anyone who denies al-Qayyim among my children will have denied me." Number 5. And in still another hadith the Prophet assured his community by stating, "The world will not come to an end until a man from the descendants of Hussein takes charge of the affairs of the world and fills it with justice and equity as it is filled with injustice and tyranny."